Report of the New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this Black Files News Report. So, hundreds of thousands of people yesterday, Tuesday, hitting the streets all across the country, all protesting, standing in solidarity with those that were protesting against police brutality in response to the murder of George Floyd by Minneapolis police. Now, this murder, as well as that not being too far removed from the murder of Breonna Taylor in Louisville, Kentucky, has actually sparked a movement where it's caused a lot of voices to be heard, a lot of marching going on, a lot of signs to be read, and obviously putting a lot of pressure on people in Minneapolis and Minnesota to make a move. So Governor Tim Walz actually has announced that the Department of Human Rights, the State Department of Human Rights, is actually opening a civil rights investigation into the Minneapolis Police Department, combing through their records, policies, practices for the past decade, and going to see whether they have systematically had discriminatory practices towards people of color. So that by itself, as well as legal observers are saying that the Attorney General up there, Keith Ellison, is actually going to looking into charging the 3 other officers that were involved in the shooting, 2 of which they were actually holding the dude down while the other officer, Derek Chauvin, was on George Floyd's neck. It's looking like it's the chance for like true justice to be served. You know what I mean? Shout out to everybody that was protesting out there, because that was big. You know what I'm saying? You comb through these internets and social media platforms, you might see Bishop Grady out there too, you digs? But power to the people. Green Wall and Graduation, man. The New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this Black Fox News Report. So over in Minnesota, you have the AFL-CIO's Coalition of Labor Unions. They're actually calling on the Minneapolis Police Union president, Bob Kroll, to resign, because basically he said some things that are far from unflattering, damn near hateful in the eyes of a lot of folks, where he's calling George Floyd, the dude with the black man that was shot in Minneapolis and killed, that everyone's protesting about, called him a violent criminal. There's no evidence of that being the case or whatever. Definitely not to label somebody like that and justify the shit. But also talking about how the protesters were terrorists. Probably listening to a lot of y'all right-wing media outlet motherfuckers talking about how everybody protesting is Antifa, which is not true. And also calling for the expanding of force used by the police against these people. He's even quoted on a podcast talking about how, he's unbothered by the police shootings, and he's been a part of 3 himself, and talking kind of reckless or whatever. And he was brought on stage in last October for a Trump 2020 campaign rally in Minneapolis. So he's just looking like real far right, kind of is all for the police discrimination towards black people. Keep in mind, the Minneapolis school district has also terminated their contract with Minneapolis PD due to the murder of George Floyd and all of the pressure that's probably come from it. They will no longer be using their resource officers. I wonder who they're going to go to, though. They're going to go to, the Nation of Islam or something like that? The Fruit of Islam, or maybe they're not fucking around crew. You know what I'm saying? That'd be very interesting. But at the end of the day, they're going to need somebody to protect those schools, but it's not going to be the police. Green Wall and Graduation. Report of the New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this Black Files News Report. So, like I said, there were a lot of protesters all across the country in remembrance of George Floyd, and standing in solidarity, calling for an end to police brutality, especially as it goes against my people, your days, people of color. Now, what else was going on when one of those protests and marches took place in Houston, where George Floyd spent most of his life. 16 of his family members were actually taking part in these protests that had them down marching 60,000 deep into the City Hall of Houston. So that's a big movement, a lot of movements made, and just these are the type of times where we all need to come together, and we all need to utilize this energy, this galvanized energy, to actually put forth towards something great. You know what I mean? The fact that we could move on this, and that is actually and it actually encouraged justice to be served, shows that the true power of the people, and let's see how we can mold that for things moving on forward. Rest in power to George Floyd, rest in power to Breonna Taylor, and all those also we lost. David McAtee, who also was killed in these protests. You know what I'm saying? let's make sure that this shit don't be in vain. Green Wall and graduation. News report of the New World Order, Bishop Grady letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this Black Files News report. Now this hurt my heart to even see it, and now to even know that the victims of it actually went to my alma mater. You know what I'm saying? The shit boils my blood a little bit, but nevertheless, justice may still be served because 6 Atlanta police officers have actually had arrest warrants issued out for them due to them on this past Saturday harassing these 2 young black college students that were driving in a car. You have one officer that breaks in the driver's side window where the dude, Messiah Young, 22-year-old Morehouse College student, was actually driving. And then you had Tania Pilgrim, a 20-year-old Spelman student that was in the passenger. So the cop breaks into the driver's side window. You have another cop slashing the front passenger side tire, I guess to stop the car, whatever. And then they proceed to tase these tase them, and then like drag them out the car. Straight abuse, straight carnage. This is in the middle of all of this police brutality that seemed to be going on this past weekend across the country, and it looked crazy. And most of them were black cops. Fucking sad. Nevertheless, 6 arrest warrants have been issued for them. 2 of the officers have already been fired. I don't give a fuck about none of that. If those was my kids, I would want to see blood. Hell, if that was me, I would want to see blood. You know what I'm saying? Like, and at the end of the day, they were taught that shit. That shit is from training. So Mayor Bottoms needs to get to the bottom of that. You know, I respect her. Every time I hear her speak, she's always saying some stand-up shit. But with this, you got to get to the bottom of it. You know what I'm saying? Green Wall and graduation, though. Report of the New World Order, Bishop Grady letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this Black Files News report. Now, this Donald Trump presidency is fucking bad. Like, everything that you could have possibly imagined could have gone wrong with a shithead like Donald Trump being in the presidency has gone wrong. And even down to now we have military being deployed to crack down on American citizens. And that's what's going on in Washington, D.C. This is, after Trump tweeted out how, Antifa is a terrorist organization now. And in the right-wing media sphere, they're circulating false info about how all of these protests are being done by Antifa. All of that fuck shit or whatever. And I know firsthand because I'm out there as one of the protesters and I'm not Antifa. Nevertheless, though, while you have that going on now, the 82nd, 700 members of the 82nd, the U.S. Army's 82nd Airborne Division with fixed bayonets have actually been called to be in Washington, D.C., trying to enforce the 7 p.m. curfew that's been placed on the region. Now reports are saying that there are 1,400 other soldiers that are stationed, ready to actually be added to those 700. Now, this is all part of reportedly Trump's show of military might. Is part of Operation Themis, or basically his operation set up to use militarized force against the protesters in the U.S. So Themis comes actually from some Greek goddess of law and order. So nevertheless, that's where we at with it, and that's the fuck shit that's going on under President Trump. And for you right-wing motherfuckers, man, y'all so quick to talk about how, states' rights and, be against federal government, but where's y'all outcry when y'all right-wing presidents and leaders are doing shit like this? This is centralization of power that's going on here. Are you kidding me? Now we got martial law type status in certain areas, and that's not to act like it can't get worse. We don't know what's happening on the day today, man. Green Wall and graduation, yeah. What of the New World Order, Bishop Grady letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this Black Files News report. So in the midst of these protests that have been going on in solidarity with those protesting against police brutality in light of the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor by police, there's been a lot of media that's been trying to document what's been going on, the crazy war zone shit we got going on out here in the United States. Among those media, you had 7 Network from Australia. You had Amelia Brace, who was a reporter who was actually clubbed and then tear gassed and actually the New World Order, Bishop Grady letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this Black Files News report. Now, we all know that media is in a democratic society, or a society that wants to be democratic. Media is the 4th branch of government. You know what I'm saying? It could be used for positive or negative or whatever. But, at the BFN, we like to tell y'all the truth. as well as a lot of other media outlets. So they will go to these events, a lot of these protests, and film these protests. That's why it's a problem when the Committee to Protect Journalists actually reports 125 press freedom violations that took place on Monday alone across the United States. And the reports are actually still coming in, so that number could raise. Now, the Australian Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, actually has called for an investigation to be conducted by the Australian Embassy in Washington, D.C., because when they were filming the protest, the peaceful White House protests, and they saw the military crack down on them or whatever, there were reporters for 7 Network in Australia that got hit. Amelia Brace was reporting, and she actually was clubbed, got tear gassed, and got hit with a rubber bullet. And then you had her cameraman, Tim Myers, who actually was hit with a riot shield and had, got punched in the face. And this is on a live broadcast that aired all across Australia. So will there be an apology by the U.S. to, address the political implications of a matter like this? I mean, we're looking crazy right now across the country. Across the world, pardon me. Like, let's be real. But honestly, this might be Donald Trump really trying to, keep up with the dictators of the world. You know what I'm saying? The LCCs and the Dutertes and, the Ben Salmans of the world. You know what I mean? Food for thought. Green War on Graduation. Report of the New World Order, Bishop Grady letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this Black Files News Report. So, Mayor Bill de Blasio of New York City actually has called for a nightly curfew for everybody to, be off the streets of the house between 8 p.m. and 5 a.m. all the way up until Sunday. Now, Governor Cuomo, the governor of New York State, is actually threatened to call and bring in the National Guard due to the fact that he felt like the New York Police Department, especially in New York City, that they failed to do their job of protecting citizens and protecting property with all of the fires that were set ablaze and the retail stores that were broken into and all of that. Mayor Bill de Blasio is rejecting that shit though. Like, feels like, there needs to be, he actually even said somebody needs a history lesson where if anytime there's been military, put outside of people's homes, ordering people to go in, it's never turned out to be good. 50s, 60s, you got the civil rights movement, and then all the way up till today. The New York Police Department has actually recorded that they recorded 200 arrests made overnight for curfew violations compared to 700 the night before. Green War on Graduation. For the New World Order, Bishop Grady letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this Black Files News Report. So in Oregon and Portland at the Burnside Bridge on Tuesday, you actually had 10,000 people protesting. Now, I seen the pictures, mostly white folks or whatever, but it was like 10,000 people doing the work that we've been asking black people have been asking our conscious white supporters to do, and I guess use their white privilege and raise awareness to those with more white privilege about these issues of that are going against black bodies. And they did that. 10,000 people laying on the ground in Burnside Bridge with their face down on the pavement, hands behind their back for 9 minutes, all in reverence to the 9 minutes that it took those 3 police officers in Minneapolis to actually kill George Floyd, 46-year-old black man killed by Minneapolis Police Department. Now, this is really big, and then you actually have protests also going on in Los Angeles, where this is a place where since Friday there have been 3,000 people who've been arrested at these protests or whatever. UCLA said they are no longer going to let LAPD use their Jackie Robinson baseball stadium as a field jail. And Jackie Robinson, for those who don't know, is the first African-American baseball player in the Major League Baseball. Now, this is also coming as LA County, a place that's had like 200, at least 300 employees catch coronavirus in their jails, and 2,000 prisoners had catch COVID-19. They actually saw their first death to COVID-19 on this past weekend, whatever, 47-year-old whose name has not been released yet. Green War on Graduation, though. News report of the New World Order, Bishop Grady letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this Black Files News Report. So yesterday there were even protests on behalf of George Floyd that took place. First off, it's been going on all across the world. And even not too far from our mainland, even in Puerto Rico, they had protesters like violating curfews because they protested into the night, going against the coronavirus curfews. Outside of the governor's mansion, Governor Wanda Vasquez in Old San Juan, you had people protesting against, on calling for justice for George Floyd and going against the island's own legacy of injustice and racism. Then you had over in Palestine, in the occupied West Bank, actually, at the outside, you had protesters outside of the of the Church of Nativity in the city of Bethlehem that were actually protesting on behalf of George Floyd, and also calling calling out the murder of George Floyd, as well as Iyad el-Halak, who was somebody that was protesting on behalf of George Floyd in West Jerusalem this past Saturday before he was killed by Israeli forces. Apparently he was yelling out Black Lives Matter and Palestinian Lives Matter before he was gunned down by Israeli forces. And then over in France, you also had people protesting in cities across the across the country. 20,000 people in Paris were protesting against against racism, as well as calling out the murder of Adama Traore, who was a black man that was killed in 2016 after being pinned down by police officers in Paris. So yeah, it's really shaking the globe. It really had an effect on other people, and there's even probably a lot more smaller stories than that. Green War and Graduation. For the New World Order, Bishop Grady letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this Black Files News Report. All this talk about George Floyd and police brutality, motherfuckers been forgotten. We in the middle of a pandemic. This COVID-19 shit still shaking up different parts, especially with Latin America being the new epicenter of this COVID-19 shit. So over in Brazil, they actually tested their highest daily death toll ever, with 1,300 people deceased in a day from coronavirus disease 2019. They have 31,000 deaths in total due to to COVID-19, as well as a number of they're about at 550,000 infections total. Compare that to like over in India, which had the whole country, the whole shit on lockdown, actually are at about 200,000 total infections. The number is believed to be, or the peak they feel like is actually set to, still hasn't even come yet. And then over in the U.S., we have a death toll that's actually topped 106,000. Now, Tyson Foods is reporting that 600 of its workers at a pork processing plant in Iowa have actually tested positive for COVID-19, and there are 16 graduating cadets at West Point that have tested positive as they return to their campus ahead of a commencement speech that's supposed to be taking place and given by Donald Trump, despite all the warnings that are out there against public gatherings. Green War and Graduation. For the New World Order, Bishop Grady letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this Black Files News Report. So Donald Trump, man, he can't have it his way. Ain't gonna be no way at all. He's actually said that he's making plans on removing the Republican National Convention from Charlotte, North Carolina, due to the fact that the governor of North Carolina, Roy Cooper, is actually saying that you can't have a full-scale convention, which is what Trump and the Republican Party are calling for. You can't have no packed house and still be, during the pandemic. You just can't do it. And so that's why Trump wants to move it. A little beknownst to a lot of people or whatever, in 8 different states and in Washington, D.C. yesterday, they actually had elections. They actually had voting ballots taking place for, primaries, as well as like local elections. And in places like, Philly and Washington, D.C., a lot of times, the people, voting rights activists think that there's going to be a lot of disenfranchisement going on, especially when you got all of these this COVID-19 protection stuff going on, as well as these military in the streets, police in the streets, and all of this protesting. So unfortunately, that's what's going down. Even in Baltimore, they only opened up in Baltimore 6 polling sites. At one polling station, there was like 100 people still there, most of them black, still waiting to vote at 10 p.m. Tuesday night. So, this is a crazy situation. It's looking like there's going to be a very low voter turnout for these upcoming elections. I guess it all follows the Republican plan of keeping Trump in power, right? Green War and Graduation. For the New World Order, Bishop Grady letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this Black Files News Report. So, as I told y'all, elections did take place yesterday in certain places in the U.S. And there were a couple upsets. So, over in the 4th U.S. Congressional District in Iowa, you had Republican Stephen King, somebody who's been outed as a known racist, openly praising and supporting far-right politicians in Europe, and then was stripped of his congressional committee membership when last year, after a New York Times article with him saying, white nationalists, white supremacists, Western civilization. When did these terms become offensive? As if you don't fucking know. Now, also in Ferguson, Missouri, Now, keep in mind that it's funny we in these times with George Floyd. Back in 2014, there was a similar situation where Darren Wilson killed a Mike Brown. Police officer cracked down on it, and they also had protests in those streets where there were people causing riots that weren't a part of the movement. Fast forward, same thing today. But the mayor during that time, who actually ordered the police crackdown on those peaceful protesters, it was James Newz III, former chair of the Missouri Young Republicans. Now, he lost to City Council member Ella Jones, who will be the first African American mayor in Ferguson City after winning 54% of the vote. Shout out to Mayor Jones. Green War on Graduation. Report of the New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this Black Files News Report. Let's not forget, even with all of these world problems that we're seeing, from mass surveillance to police brutality to coronavirus disease 2019, we still have to worry about climate change. Now, over in India, you have 100,000 people, some of them who've actually tested positive for COVID-19, that actually have to evacuate Gujarat and Maharashtra after this severe cyclone is now descending on the Mumbai region of India. And India is a densely populated country, for sure. Now, also in Central America, I told y'all about Tropical Storm Amanda, which actually has killed so far 15 people and caused severe flooding and torrential downpour in El Salvador and Guatemala. The storm has since left the Pacific and moved over to the Gulf of Mexico area, where it's been renamed Tropical Storm Cristobal. Cristobal being, for those who don't know, the official first name of Christopher Columbus. Nevertheless, this is the first sea-named storm, the earliest sea-named storm that's ever been named, after the first two storms, Arthur and Bertha, actually came ahead of the official Atlantic hurricane season. Climate scientists are warning that 2020 is going to be the hottest year on record, and if you've been paying attention to me and what I've been telling y'all, you kind of already knew that. So far, there are the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is at 418 parts per million. That's the most it has ever been in the last 3 million years. Stay woke, y'all. Green War on Graduation.